Yo, yo, yo.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me just turn this down for a second. There we go. Much better. I had it on full volume here.
So it's blowing your head off.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Let me just see what
Quit
we got all
yelling at me.
streaming in here. There we go.
You working at home today?
No, I'm in the office. I just took my backdrop down so we could look out the window.
I was thinking about getting one of those backdrop things because the reflection of what's in my glasses is what's behind me.
I literally ordered that, Matt, and they shipped it from like Fiji, and you can get any size you want. I think the whole thing with the kit, we bring it to trade shows, was like $250. It's unbelievable. I couldn't even believe you could make.
Gee whiz, you can't ship it for that now.
No, I mean it's not. It came DHL. It was fabric. We've had it for 2 years. It's pretty cool. I'll give you I'll find the place I got it and send it to you.
Yeah, I need to go. I need something for when I go to trade shows to kind of prop up a thing, make you look like you're for real.
Exactly. So
I used to have this poster that a guy sent me. It was he said, I follow Layman's Lumber Guy because he's always on target. And there's a picture of a little kid standing back from a toilet, peeing from like 15 feet, hitting the toilet bowl. And that was my trade show picture. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Well, cool. We'll just wait for a few other people to stream in here. It looks like there's some coming in. Jared Voss, good afternoon from Minnesota.
Hello, Jared.
Let's see who else we got coming in here. A little rainy here today, Matt. I had to do the umbrella and everything. It's been pouring for 2 days up here.
Yeah, it just started raining by the time I got back from running my morning errands. So I've been sitting here looking out the window at it all day long, and there's no driving range today.
Jonathan Miller from Ina, I-N-A. Hopefully I got that spelled right. Ina, Illinois. Steve Simoneski. I hope I got Steve's last name right from KC.
Yes, he's getting to be a regular attender. He's going to have to get some kind of badge of honor.
We should have a badge of honor. All right, well, cool. We'll start it up. So we got lunch with Lumbermen, just so we put that on, 3/31/22. Hopefully I got the right date there. So we've been doing this for a while, Matt. This is Matt Layman from Layman's Lumber Guide, Ashley Boeckholt from Materials Exchange, where we kind of break down last week, this week. Matt talks about what he's seeing, what he may be seeing, and we kind of break it down in the forecast, chat about some different things, and have a good time doing it. So, Matt, you came up on the show. I saw you yesterday. A lot of the stuff you and I were talking about, you were talking about the last 2 or 3 weeks is kind of coming into play a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's kind of I love it when that happens because you kind of hang yourself out there on those little flimsy limb, hoping these things are going to happen. But I think one of the things that I think I've gotten particularly good at is I call it the overlooked obvious, because I listen for what everybody else is saying and what's the industry seeing, what does everybody know, and then what's some obvious things that they don't know. For me, it was consumer confidence. That I think that there's just so much going on in the world today. One of my readers told me the other day, said he's the state senator in South Carolina. He has a lumber yard, and he said you should stick to lumber, not politics. I said, well, unfortunately, right now politics has got a big sway on what's going to happen in the lumber market. So you got to kind of tread lightly, but I think consumer confidence it's really just started to think people are getting worried about a lot of things other than building a deck, and are they going to? The home builders are all convinced that their backlog of sold homes is going to stay intact because people have so much equity in it, and that was the case going into the end of the year. But if you look at what's happened with probably home prices, what's been sold for the first 3 months of this year, there's not a lot of equity in those homes, and those people can walk away from those houses without any sweat at all. And the average price of a home now is up $300 a month just from interest rate increases being up 30%. So I think the industry stands to get some of this stuff served back to them.
Yeah, well, the other thing too, and I know Riley brought this up the other day. Think about people that were going and buying homes that the price wasn't even locked in yet, right? Because there was such a froth where the builders were saying in some cases, "Hey, we can't lock you. Yeah, this house is yours, but at the closing we'll figure out what the complete cost is." Right? In the
Right.
meantime, they're out getting a mortgage that now is, unless they locked that mortgage in, was an
But I don't
unknown.
think they could. I don't think they could because those. I mean, that conversation you just talked about is less than it's 3 months old.
Yeah.
Those houses aren't. A lot of those houses aren't even started yet. So I think that's a pile that could just certainly easily just go away.
Well, one.
And the lumber market gets would we see this every time. We saw it this year. We saw it last year too. But you go from a period where you can't find anything, you can't buy anything, nobody's quoting anything, and 2 weeks later, price is down $200, and it's all over the place. And
Yeah,
you
no
go,
doubt.
what happened to the dynamics that set that in motion? And it's going to be the same with housing. I think it's going to go from being you can't get one to all of a sudden they're going to be all over the place.
Well, look, this is one of my highlights I want to talk about. You and I have been talking about it. We looked at it in all the housing data that spread that just kept widening between starts, permits, and completions. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
The
It's still going the wrong way. I mean, last month it was up. The sales, the starts to completion ratio is at 74%, and that's as low as it's ever been since they've been giving the record for 50 years. So there's just 25% of the homes that are getting started aren't even scheduled to get completed this year.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And then you hear about homes that are trying to get buttoned up with missing certain components in them. Real quick, I want to start out. I love this article in another dimension, the women in trucking. I know we've got a jumping off topic a little bit here, but then we'll roll into market conditions that you kind of talked about and the other. Just really well written. So Jessica wrote that. Is that your daughter-in-law or Jerica?
Jerica's my stepdaughter-in-law.
Okay. All right.
Oh, it's my stepdaughter, not my stepdaughter-in-law. She's my stepdaughter.
She's got some. I like her. I like her writing style. It looked pretty cool. So tell me a little bit. So I got to drive a truck for the first time this weekend, a big semi, and the thing that I noticed is they're pretty simple to drive. I wasn't pulling 80,000 pounds behind me, but it's basically you get in the cab, you press D, and you put the gas down, and you go right.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw this on I don't know if it was one of the news networks. It was the lady that owns this. I think I sent it to Jory. 3 girls truck driving school to get your CDL.
Yeah.
And she was walking around her truck in her flashy high heels, and I thought that was pretty classy. That she just totally if you can imagine the transformation in the trucking industry when a lady pulls up in a truck and gets out and the truck's all clean and it's nice and neat and she's well mannered and not cussing like a sailor and got grease under her fingernails and her hat on backwards. And I think that lady there might be the founder. I forgot her name, but you could look on the website and see. But she was making the comment that every one of her students graduates with a job. They're just, and I think they're in Mendenhall, Mississippi, right there. And there's another one that's a Women in Trucking, apparently an organization that's getting women in trucking. But it's I think it's a great opportunity, and the way all you got to do to attract more truck drivers is make a truck look like an office instead of an outhouse.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, I thought the article was well written because we need more truck drivers, right? I mean, they're
absolutely.
And it's a pretty cool industry, pretty cool business, a well-needed business, a business that I think deserves more credit than it's given. And especially when we're going through situations like we've gone through for 2 years, where getting a truck for prompt lumber may take you 3 weeks. That anybody new into trucking that can get a job and support and keep things moving here at home in the U.S. I think I'm all for it. I thought people, if they just subscribed to Layman's Lumber Guide and had a chance to read that, they got a leg up on knowing some information and finding better alternatives to getting trucks sometimes.
Well, I was thinking about this too. Now, just looking at the pictures there, they all look like they're vans. And I think it might be a good idea to have these guys, get a couple of these ladies on your Friday show and expose them to the lumber side of things. They may be maybe an opportunity for them they're not aware of, that they could really fill a big void in. And
Absolutely, because we're actually starting to look at shipping more vans on certain panel products and other products off of the ports, right? And but you're right, just to get them out. I think I saw you had an exchange with Jory. I think they are going to talk about getting them on the Friday show.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Yeah.
Just think, if that came out of this whole thing, that's a win for everybody in the world, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So let's flip over to market conditions. Really cool article. Basically, it's titled "January Chaos, February Frenzy, March Mayhem, Next April Anxiety." I read through the whole thing, and kind of takes
that inspired me to go through the whole calendar month and give everything a name.
It's crazy, right?
And here's what I realized about that. So much of the industry makes their plans based on the monthly expectations. Like, they start at the beginning of the month, say, what should I do for this month? And they make their plans based on that. But the lumber market cycles don't move in those monthly cycles. They move in, there's about 7 or 8 FTPs throughout the year, but several of them hit during mid-month kind of things. But I'm going to make that available to everybody just to be aware of. We'll start talking about those as the month comes up. But I thought the April anxiety was really, it's a tough spot for the buyers to be in, because you've come off a strong March where people or February where people are building inventory to try to get ready for spring, and then April comes around, and April's kind of a digestion month. I mean, April comes around and the prices kind of typically soften after the February buy. March gets soft. And then April gets there with your inventories are low. I mean, everybody you talk to today says field inventories are light. But the thing that people are thinking about is like, yeah, okay, I'm light going into May, but May is typically a time when the market just falls out of bed and we go down from May to August. So buyers are very reluctant to step in and build inventory right, even though they need some. So my expectation is there's going to be a fill-in buy, which will happen probably over the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to start running out of steam. We'll have some momentum that will carry the market higher through April. But when May rolls around, people are thinking about liquidating inventory. They're not thinking about buying it.
Good question here, Matt. We'll just kind of intermittently hit these questions when they're coming through. Matt, Scott Thompson was asking, what do y'all think about the discount of futures to cash? Will it close by futures up or cash down? Or are they no longer that well correlated? Well, I mean, I think they're already starting to close by cash coming down in some cases, if that makes sense.
You call it it's either a futures discount or a cash premium. Not necessarily futures is that line, but cash could be out of line. And futures, if you think about what futures is, it's a projection of what's likely to happen in the future, and the futures market is telling us it's not very friendly to May lumber 6 weeks from now.
So one thing I want to highlight, we talked about in the program yesterday, and Matt, you bring this up a lot too. Remember, Scott, that May futures lumber is wood that you're probably not going to see until June. So so when you talk about a market in the spot market right now, there's still a premium sometimes for prompt wood. And then there's and then there's a market for wood that's probably a month out, and then you've got a forward market that's so where you're kind of probably see that is when people are quoting projects right now, leading on that July futures contract to price in the future. So the curve seems to be discounted going forward, right?
Yeah, and you think about, just look at what's happened to Southern Pine Lumber in the last 3 weeks. It's lost $300.
Yeah,
and we started this week or last week with all the proponents of bullishness in the lumber market, saying that there's no wood available in Canada. You can't get anything. The prices are firm. Mills are 1410, and I saw today that all of a sudden with the same story, they're 4 to 6 weeks out. There's nothing available, but the price is $12.50. So don't think that the price of lumber can't fall without having a whole bunch of wood on the ground. Mills have no order files. They've got shipment files, and I think you'd be absolutely insane to buy a meal shipment at anything over $1,000 for 4 to 6 week shipment.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, we were trading some stuff on the platform for 4 weeks out, just above $1,000 for 2x4 16s yesterday, right? Because if you think about it, if you go to somebody in Europe or wherever and say to them, "Hey, I can get you over $1,000. Do you want it?" Well, they may have thought differently 2 or 3 weeks ago, but now they're like, "Yeah, heck yeah, go get that business," right?
Right.
Makes sense. Let's jump over to the 2x4 composite real quick while we're talking about this and take a look at it. I'm not trying to give too much away on your guide because I want to make sure people sign up for it too, Matt. So let's see if we can take a look at the 2x4 12-month forecast here.
It's interesting. I don't mind showing it because what I've realized is there's so many people that I get people all the time say, "I've been following your stuff for years." I go, "Well, that's interesting because I've never heard of you before." So they look at it, but they don't act on it. So that's one of the things I want to talk about too. Is the class that are coming up is going to be.
Oh, and I have that as a highlight to talk about because I'm kind of, he sent me that email talking about everybody signed up so far. So let's just take a look at the 2x4 12-month forecast. And I think, Matt, if people would have been watching or subscribed to yours, this probably would be no surprise to them going into the red zone here.
Right.
What can you use a quick info on what we're looking at on this chart?
That's basically the April anxiety. It's a place where the market it shows the sell-off that began in late March, just from people being uncertain about what's coming ahead. And what's interesting about it is the stories always change, and the reason that disruptions are different, the situations are different, but the actions are always the same. And I say always the same, being 86% of the time these FTPs or turning points are correct, which this suggests that in that red zone, prices are going to end that period lower than when they started. And around week number 15, we should get a rise in the market now. And I want to remind everybody that we're looking at timing, not price. And I don't think that the market's going to rally higher than we've already been. I think our highs for the year are already in.
Yeah,
and the next buy around is going to be just fill in, so we could see that period, week 15 to week 21, really just kind of go sideways at best. I mean, or even at worst. But it doesn't have to go up that strong move that it did that right there last year, like it is now, because that's influenced by the last couple of years of misappropriation of or misbuying at the wrong time and overbuying, and so it's kind of judged. It's really weighted more towards more recent events than distant events, but the timing there goes back to it's a 5 and 10 year and 3 year weighted average, so it's kind of a good projection of what's likely to happen direction wise. But I really don't think people are real excited about the business prospects for this year. I've got one reader that's one of our members has over 300 Canadian retail lumber yards, and he said their sales in March were down 25 to 30% from January and February.
Well, interesting. I think you just said, and Riley made the comment yesterday about how the top of the market's already been put in for this year, and we're probably
I agree.
Yeah, I don't have any axe to grind there, but I have to agree with just the dynamics that we've seen. I'd like to go over and look at the Southern Pine chart now that you put up, just because I really think that's an interesting one, because we've gone from things are so busy, there's not going to be more pine, to that thing just craters basically, right? And when I say craters, it's still trading above $1,000 a thousand, on a 300 cost of production. Right?
Well, maybe it might not be by tomorrow though.
Yeah, that's good. So you've had some big adjustments in print, and the interesting thing on the way the industry print always catches this is if it's printed down $200 or $300, it's probably traded well below there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So this is just interesting. Look at we kind of went through week 3, week 10, and then kind of popped over. Now I guess I'm wondering how much inventory of of pine is on the ground. This is the 2x4 index, but then you talk about a lot of pine and about, you said this last week, probably the big treating deals and big treating consumption. There's going to be good consumption, but it's probably going to be off a little bit from last year. Is that the correct way?
Yeah, because if you think about it, the guys that service loads at Home Depot, 84 Lumber, Menards, guys like that, the big volume consumers of treated lumber, the guys that supply that aren't going to just build a bunch of inventory and hope those guys come and see it or come and take it. And they've already told them that they don't expect this year to be as robust as it was last year. So those treaters aren't just loading up on wood and sitting on it. They're waiting for their customer, the large home centers and contractor yards, to say, okay, go buy me some. And then they'll price it at the market, but they're not taking a chance. So right now those big treaters don't have a lot of inventory. So the inventory shifted that would normally be at the treating plants is at the mills. And it was interesting. I had one of the component manufacturer call me a couple of weeks ago and said that their TPI inspector was in their office with them and said, and this guy's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about, because he said, I've been to all the mills around the Carolinas, and he said, there's no lumber on the ground anywhere. That was $300 ago. Yeah. So you don't necessarily have to, what you don't see one day could be a bunch, you'd be gone one day and loaded up, and then 2 or 3 days later, if you make it and don't sell it, that fills up in a hurry.
I want to bring Jared's comment up here. Jared Voss brought a comment up. He said, in your opinion, what impact will Canfor have in the market reducing operating schedules, suggesting a minimum of 4 weeks? So that's something I haven't heard about, but people don't usually announce they pullback capacity because things are going higher, right? I mean,
yeah, if you read that, Jared's probably got that memo. They sent out a press release last night saying they were going to reduce like 1 million board feet, and it's like 1,000 carloads or something like that. I didn't see Jared anything about that over the time period, but
so what was the reasoning for it, Matt? I didn't read it.
Supply chain disruptions. It was probably, they implied that it was some supply issues on their part of getting what they needed to be able to, and it's probably like replacement parts for the sawmill and stuff like that and maintenance. But you don't stop at $1,200, $1,400. You don't curtail production because you got no place to put it, or it's not going somewhere. That's the reason. You either don't have any place to put it, or it's not selling, and they're trying to support the prices through production curtailments. But it's not a bullish sign when mills curtail production.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I have not read it yet. So thanks, Jared, for bringing that up. I'll try to read it a little bit, but I kind of echo Matt. Whenever anybody makes an announcement to take production off when their return is as high as it's ever been in the history of a return on lumber, I got to really dig into the details and see what they are. But I'm
the panic's already started. I just got an email that said Canfor's off the market.
Okay, all right, gotcha. Well, that's interesting. So
they're off the market, but they were also 4 to 6 weeks for shipment. Okay. So what are you off the market for? From having nothing?
Yeah, it's interesting. Let's go over to OSB real quick and take a look at that one. The OSB chart. So that's another one that kind of stretched out there pretty good, Matt. And that's the biggest item that we've been selling on our platform for the last 6 weeks. Probably over 300 cars or truckloads sold in the last 6 to 8 weeks on the platform. And what we've noticed, it's a lot of retailers with extra contracts selling back into the market, finding places in the United States that had didn't have enough, coming from places in the United States that had more than they needed. And I guess that's why it should work. But what's your thought on there?
Well, I got two thoughts on that. One is that it's the misdistribution of the product. We saw that last year where Home Depot became the secondary supplier for the entire industry, and they probably did pretty well with that. So I would imagine that they went back and probably got their unjustifiable large share of the market. But the OSB mills are putting a lot of faith in those big boys to tell them, listen, when they say jump, they say how high. But one of the things this does not reflect is the the CDX market is plummeting.
Yeah,
Plywood,
I got a call about that yesterday. How there was these huge discounts being traded on the West Coast and everywhere else on plywood. And
yeah, and even in the South, so people are going to stop using. I mean, I know they'd like to have OSB because of whatever the reason they want to have it for, but when you can buy CDX for 300 or 400 bucks, 1,000 less, there's gonna be a flight from OSB.
you know what, Matt? I always thought that, but I didn't see that this year because there were times where it was that big of a discount, and so many people have projects engineered for OSB that they didn't make the switch.
Yeah, a lot of people did though. That when they for the things that they for the jobs they had coming forward, they didn't have already committed. The ones they were going to buy for, they switched to CDX and.
Yeah, you would think, right? I mean, it would make sense, and I was actually astonished that more people didn't do that this year. But from what I'm hearing, the discounts that some of the plywood is traded on now, and look at we've had plywood and plywood people list on here, and I think that's still a really wild west market because they go cut deals that seems like with people outside of what I actually see on our platform. What I hear it actually trades at to this little select group of people that then go out to move it to people is pretty substantial, right?
How about that Brazilian? If you still get a lot of that Brazilian plywood on the exchange?
Yeah, but I think we do. I'm just not sure how that distribution is set up. I think that they still have a lot of people that they have their go-to people first that they've had relationships for a long time, and kind of use us as a secondary to see if they can get something. So we're trying, but I think that has a very interesting distribution chain to it that is really entrenched. But we'll keep chipping away at that one.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, you sent me that email on your coaching program coming up, and I mean you got a lot of people signed up for it. Tell me about that.
Well, it's interesting is there's a little over 80 people that have signed up for it, and interestingly, a little less than half of them are not even subscribers. A lot of them are watching this show today. They've just seen you and I talk back and forth because what I did is before we started, I said, I'm going to give 30 days for free because I want you to see what it's like. And then we'll price it in the 30 days. And my goal was to only have about 30 people to keep it kind of a smaller group. So I expect about half of them will drop out. But it's a good opportunity for anybody that wants to just kind of see how I look at the market, and we're basically going to take the report every week and just say, I want to encourage you to take this action, to have confidence in the FTPs and the reasons why these things are going to happen, but more than just the recurring cycle of the market that you can count on. Just looking at I show the past and the future because the past gives you confidence to act in the future. And so I've heard from several guys that were members that ran out of wood in the middle of May, and I said, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I told you my suggestion was to buy through the end of May or the middle of June, so you wouldn't have to buy at the top of the market. And I hate to see when people that are, they kind of go off and renegade on their own without even consultation or thought, and just do the complete opposite of what's suggested, and it gets painful.
One thing, some of the classes I've sat in on, I think, is the diversity of the people in different industries or different segments of the supply chain that were in it. I think some people may think, hey, I maybe wouldn't fit into that, but I mean, you have framers, you have big retail, you have small retail, you have family yards, you have truss plants, you have industrial people, you have all kinds of people in the supply chain for lumber on that join these groups.
It's a good mix. It's more independent people, like independent truss manufacturers. I mean, there's large companies, but there's also the majority of it is independent retail lumber yards, family-owned businesses, or truss plants, or wood preservers, or anything. It's more of a conglomeration of. I'd say it represents the majority of the market from as far as letterheads go, but it's not the majority of the market when it comes to chain yards of 400 2,000 locations. Well, for example, Lowe's and Home Depot are not members. You take the two largest guys out, that's a pretty big chunk of of business, but it's not real difficult to find out what, those guys are in a situation where everybody can predict what they're going to do. You know how they're going to play the game, and they're going to do VMI. They're going to play these monthly cycles, and it's pretty easy to figure out what they're going to do. So, in my opinion, they're not really a factor in the market because they're in the market every day, day in, day out, buying lumber just to fill holes and not really position taking.
Well, one of the interesting things that the guys brought up yesterday, and I always fail to remember this, these big boxes, the only really, from what I hear, risk that they have is the inventory that's sitting in their store. That's market price that spins pretty quickly. Everything else that sits outside around them at all these distribution yards and people have VMIs, that's all market based. So
they're current market value. Yeah,
they're a lot different than an independent retail yard that has to buy 3 months of inventory and take the risk on it, hedge it, and do all that. Right there, they go out and put programs together with these big mills and say, "Ship me this much," and have it positioned all around me so you can, so I don't run out of milk and eggs on the shelves. Right.
Well, it's funny. I've never been a big proponent of contracts because they tend to get you in a falling market. But I just have a new concept I was just working on last night is about when to do contracts, and when not to do contracts. The ideal time to do contracts would be like May through September, when the mills probably need the contracts because the business is slower and they've got less to ship. But ideally, you want to build these 60 and 90-day positions from November through May, and then from May to August have 30-day positions. So you could really work out a good deal with mills doing short-term contracts to be priced at the market, or just having trucks come in on a weekly basis on a falling market. That's the way you want to buy anyway. So in a rising market, the home centers get hurt on that VMI. In a falling market is when they do better because they're priced at the market in a falling market. So the thing that we're going to learn, that I'm going to really stress in these classes, is when to accumulate and when to liquidate inventory.
That sounds great, Matt. Well, we're up against our half an hour, so Matt at laymansguide.com is down there in the bottom part of the screen. You can take a look at it. It's by all means reach out to Matt. Matt, I got to tell you, reading this in color on my desk, I used the color printer today, is a heck of a lot easier, man.
Good.
It was great.
Yeah, the print's better.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Looking forward to next week. And also mxlumber.com if you want a digital experience buying and selling, making the whole supply chain a little bit more transparent. Come to mxlumber.com, register, fill out the form. We'll get you in the queue to get a demo, and we'll get you on within 24 hours being on here buying and selling lumber. It's really easy. You don't have to have any.
I want to throw in something there too. I know that I've got several members that drop in just to hear what I have to say that are not trading on the exchange, and you guys, you really need to give it a shot. And it's not because I'm trying to promote it or anything, but it's just a good source of supply. When you look around and see, I hear you guys talking all the time about that you don't see any volume of lumber, but look and see how much wood's being offered on that platform. There's lots of product out there that you're just not seeing, that you just not get exposed to. So
Matt, a lot of people just put up bids without offers yesterday, bid something to buy where nothing wasn't showing, and all of a sudden the offers came in once the sellers saw it. So
yeah, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not out there.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you very much, everybody, for showing up at Lunch with Lumbermen. With Matt Layman, Ashley Boeckholt. We'll see you next week, and make sure you sign up for Matt's report. We'll talk to y'all soon.
See you guys. Thanks for coming.